25 cheap meals your grandparents used to survive hard times. Did you remember when families gathered around simple, hearty meals that cost just pennies to make? Long before fast food and microwave dinners, our grandparents knew how to stretch a dollar and fill hungry bellies. Today we're exploring 25 ingenious meals that kept families fed during the toughest times. Let's start with mac and cheese. Not the boxed kind you see today, but the real deal. Elbow macaroni swimming in a homemade cheese sauce made from whatever cheese was on sale. Back in the 1930s and 40s, a pound of cheese cost about 15 cents, which is roughly $3 in today's money. Your grandmother would melt that cheese with a little flour and milk, creating a rich sauce that could feed 6 people for less than 50 cents total. She'd bake it in the oven until the top got crispy and golden, turning simple ingredients into pure comfort. During the Great Depression, this became a lifeline meal because it provided calcium and protein when meat was scarce. Some families added breadcrumbs on top, made from stale bread that would otherwise go to waste. That's right, nothing was thrown away. Today's gourmet mac and cheese with truffle oil would make our grandparents shake their heads at the waste. Rice and beans. This combination fed millions during hard times, and still does today. Your grandparents knew that dried beans cost almost nothing, about 5 cents a pound in the 1940s, and when combined with rice, created a complete protein. They'd soak those beans overnight, then simmer them with whatever seasonings they had, maybe an onion, some salt pork if they were lucky, or just salt and pepper. The rice would cook separately, absorbing every drop of that flavorful bean liquid. A single pot could feed a family of 8, and leftovers got even better the next day. In the South, red beans and rice became a Monday tradition because women could let it simmer while doing laundry. Spanish families made their version with black beans and added a bay leaf. Italian immigrants used white beans with garlic and rosemary. Each culture had its own spin, but the principle remained the same: cheap, filling, and nutritious. Potato soup. When money was tight, potatoes became the hero of the kitchen. At just 2 cents a pound during the Depression, they were the most affordable vegetable available. Your grandmother would dice up 5 or 6 potatoes, maybe add an onion if she had one, and simmer everything in water or milk if the family could spare it. Some lucky families had a ham bone to throw in for flavor. The potatoes would break down, creating a thick, creamy base that stuck to your ribs. She might add some celery leaves, not the stalks, those were too precious, just the leafy tops that most people threw away. A sprinkle of black pepper, maybe some dried herbs from the garden, and you had a meal that could stretch to feed unexpected guests. Think about that, a meal for 6 people that cost less than 20 cents total. Gravy and biscuits. Also known as shit on a shingle by military families, this meal turned leftover meat drippings into liquid gold. Your grandmother saved every drop of fat from cooking, stored it in a can on the back of the stove. When times were lean, she'd make a roux with that fat and flour, add milk or water, and create a rich gravy. The biscuits were made from scratch: flour, lard, and buttermilk if available, or just water with a splash of vinegar to make it rise. Sometimes she'd add bits of sausage or dried beef to the gravy if the family had any. Other times, it was just the gravy itself, seasoned heavily with black pepper. Those biscuits soaked up every drop, turning a few tablespoons of fat into a filling breakfast that powered hard-working men through long days in the fields or factories. Cabbage and sausage. Cabbage was the working man's vegetable, hearty, cheap, and available even in winter. A whole head cost about 3 cents and could feed a family for days. Your grandparents would slice it thick, throw it in a pot with whatever sausage they could afford, usually the cheapest cuts full of fat and flavor. Polish families used kielbasa, Germans used bratwurst, Italians used their homemade sausages. The cabbage would cook down, absorbing all those smoky, savory flavors from the meat. Sometimes they'd add potatoes to make it heartier, or serve it over noodles to stretch it further. The best part? Cabbage actually tasted better reheated, so one pot could provide meals for 3 or 4 days. Imagine that, spending 25 cents to feed your family for half a week. Lentil soup. Before lentils became trendy health food, they were survival food. At 4 cents a pound, dried lentils provided more protein than almost any other ingredient your grandparents could buy. Unlike other dried beans, lentils didn't need soaking. You could go from bag to bowl in under an hour. They'd simmer those lentils with whatever vegetables were cheap that week: carrots, celery, onions. If times were really tough, just lentils, water, and salt would do. Some families added a splash of vinegar at the end to brighten the flavor. Others saved bacon grease to sauté the vegetables first, adding layers of flavor to this simple soup. A pound of lentils could make enough soup to feed a family for 2 days, providing essential nutrients when fresh vegetables were scarce or too expensive. Chili. The beauty of chili was its flexibility. It could be as simple or complex as your budget allowed. During the Depression, hobo chili might be just beans and tomatoes with chili powder. When times were slightly better, your grandmother would add ground beef, usually the fattiest, cheapest cuts that needed long cooking anyway. She'd brown that meat, saving every bit of fat, then add dried beans that had been soaking overnight, canned tomatoes if they were on sale, or fresh ones from the garden in summer. The seasonings were simple: chili powder, cumin if they had it, lots of black pepper. Some regions added corn, others added pasta to stretch it further. Cincinnati families served it over spaghetti. Texas families insisted on no beans at all, just meat and peppers. But during hard times, those rules went out the window. You added whatever you had and were grateful for it. Sloppy Joes. This American classic was born from necessity. Ground beef was cheaper than steaks or roasts because it used the scraps and trimmings. Your grandmother would brown a pound of that beef, stretching it with breadcrumbs or oatmeal when money was really tight. Then she'd add ketchup, homemade from garden tomatoes if possible, along with onions, maybe some mustard or Worcestershire sauce if the pantry had it. The mixture would simmer until thick, then get spooned onto whatever bread was available. During the Depression, that might be day-old bread from the bakery, sold at a discount. The beauty of Sloppy Joes was that 1 pound of meat could feed 8 people when served on buns. Kids loved the messy, sweet, savory combination, and parents loved that it filled bellies cheaply. Egg salad sandwiches. When meat was a luxury, eggs became the protein of choice. At 15 cents a dozen in the 1940s, they were affordable even for struggling families. Your grandmother would hard-boil a dozen eggs at once, mash them with mayonnaise she often made herself from oil and egg yolks. A little mustard, some pickle relish if she had it, salt and pepper. Spread between slices of homemade bread, this simple filling could make sandwiches for the whole family's lunch. Some mothers added finely chopped celery for crunch. Others mixed in a spoonful of pickle juice for extra flavor. The sandwiches packed well in lunch pails for factory workers and school children alike. During World War II rationing, when meat was scarce, egg salad became a staple at church potlucks and community gatherings, cornbread and pinto beans. In the South and Southwest, this combination was more than food, it was tradition. Dried pinto beans cost next to nothing and could simmer all day while your grandmother tended to other chores. She'd season them with salt pork or ham hocks when available, or just onions and garlic when times were lean. The cornbread was made from cornmeal, which was cheaper than wheat flour in many regions, mixed with buttermilk, eggs, and a little fat, then baked in a cast-iron skillet until golden and crispy. That cornbread would soak up the bean liquid called pot liquor, creating a complete meal. Families would gather around the table, each person crumbling their cornbread into a bowl of beans. Leftovers got mashed and fried into patties for breakfast the next day. Nothing went to waste. Fried rice. Long before Chinese takeout became common, American families were making their own version of fried rice from leftovers. Your grandmother never threw away leftover rice. She'd spread it on a plate to dry overnight, then fry it the next day with whatever she had on hand. Scrambled eggs were almost always included, along with any vegetables that needed using up. Celery, carrots, peas from a can. Soy sauce was exotic and expensive. So many families used Worcestershire sauce or just salt and pepper for flavoring. Some added tiny pieces of leftover meat, ham, chicken, even hot dogs cut into rounds. The key was getting the pan smoking hot and keeping everything moving. A skilled cook could turn last night's plain rice into tonight's exciting dinner, stretching those groceries one more day. Hot dogs and macaroni salad. Hot dogs were the people's meat, made from cuts that couldn't be sold any other way, but packed with flavor and incredibly cheap. At 10 cents a pound, they provided protein when better cuts were out of reach. Your grandmother would boil or fry them, serving them with homemade macaroni salad on the side. That salad was another economical miracle. Cooked macaroni mixed with mayonnaise, a little mustard, maybe some chopped pickles or celery. Hard to believe, right? Some families added cube cheese when they could afford it, or canned peas for color. The salad could be made ahead and actually improved overnight in the icebox. During summer, when cooking heated up the whole house, this cold meal was especially welcome. Church picnics and family reunions always featured huge bowls of macaroni salad alongside grilled hot dogs. Tuna casserole. When this dish appeared in the 1940s, it revolutionized weeknight dinners. Canned tuna was cheap protein that didn't need refrigeration, crucial when many families still used ice boxes. Your grandmother would mix that tuna with cooked noodles, usually egg noodles that cost just pennies per pound. A can of cream of mushroom soup served as the sauce, though during really tight times, she'd make white sauce from butter, flour, and milk. Frozen peas added color and nutrition when available. The whole mixture went into a baking dish, topped with crushed crackers or breadcrumbs mixed with a little butter. Baked until bubbly and golden, this casserole could feed 6 people for less than 50 cents total. It became so popular that variations appeared in community cookbooks across America. Baked potatoes with toppings. The humble baked potato became a canvas for creativity during hard times. Your grandparents would bake several potatoes at once in the oven, or wrapped in foil in the fireplace coals if they were trying to save fuel. Once baked, those potatoes could be topped with whatever was available. Butter and salt were the basics, but families got creative. Leftover chili, crumbled bacon saved from Sunday's breakfast, grated cheese, sour cream made from cream that was starting to turn. Some families made loaded potatoes a weekly tradition, setting out all the toppings and letting everyone build their own. A single large potato was filling enough to be a meal, especially when topped with protein. At 2 cents per pound, potatoes remained one of the most economical ways to fill hungry stomachs: grilled cheese and tomato soup. This classic combination emerged during the 1920s and became a Depression-era staple. The soup often came from cans. Campbell's tomato soup cost 10 cents and could be stretched with milk or water to serve 4. Your grandmother would butter the outside of bread slices, add whatever cheese she had, usually American or cheddar, and grill them in a hot skillet until golden and melty. The acidity of the tomato soup cut through the richness of the cheese, creating a perfectly balanced meal. During World War II, when butter was rationed, families spread mayonnaise on the bread instead. It grilled just as well and added tangy flavor. Some mothers added a slice of tomato or ham to the sandwich when the budget allowed. This simple meal became so beloved that it remains a comfort food favorite today. Stuffed peppers. When bell peppers were in season and cheap at the market, your grandmother would make stuffed peppers to use up leftover rice and stretch a small amount of ground meat. She'd cut the tops off the peppers, remove the seeds, and fill them with a mixture of cooked rice, ground beef or pork, onions, and seasonings. Sometimes she'd add breadcrumbs to stretch the filling further, or mix in canned tomatoes for moisture. The peppers would bake in a pan with a little water or tomato sauce in the bottom, creating their own sauce as they cooked. One pepper made a complete meal with vegetables, grain, and protein all in one neat package. Families with gardens grew their own peppers specifically for this dish, preserving extras in jars to enjoy year-round. Beef stew. The magic of beef stew was turning tough, cheap cuts of meat into something delicious. Your grandmother would buy stew meat, essentially the trimmings and tough pieces butchers couldn't sell as steaks. She'd brown those chunks in a heavy pot, building layers of flavor. Then in went whatever root vegetables were cheapest: potatoes, carrots, turnips, rutabagas. An onion or two, some celery if available. Water or beef broth made from bones she'd saved covered everything. Then came the waiting, hours of slow simmering that transformed tough meat into tender morsels and turned simple vegetables into a rich, satisfying meal. She'd thicken the broth with flour mixed with water, creating a gravy that coated every bite. One pot of stew could feed the family for days, and it got better each time it was reheated. Tater tot casserole. This Midwestern favorite emerged in the 1950s when frozen foods became affordable. Your grandmother would layer ground beef mixed with canned soup, usually cream of mushroom or cream of chicken, in a baking dish. Sometimes she'd add frozen mixed vegetables or canned corn. The magic came from the topping, frozen tater tots arranged in neat rows across the top. As it baked, the tots became crispy and golden, while the filling below bubbled and melded together. This casserole was special because it felt modern and convenient while still being economical. 1 pound of ground beef could feed 8 people when stretched with soup and vegetables. Church potlucks always featured at least 3 versions of this casserole, each family adding their own twist: peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Simple? Yes. But during hard times, peanut butter provided cheap protein that didn't spoil. A jar cost about 25 cents and could make dozens of sandwiches. Your grandmother might make her own jam from wild berries or fruit that was too ripe to eat fresh. She'd spread that peanut butter thick. It was filling and nutritious. Some families added sliced bananas when they could afford them, or a drizzle of honey from their own hives. During the Depression, peanut butter sandwiches sustained countless children whose parents couldn't afford meat. Schools started providing them for lunch programs because they were nutritious, cheap, and didn't need refrigeration. Even today, the average American eats 3,000 peanut butter sandwiches in their lifetime, a testament to this humble meal's staying power. Cabbage rolls. This old-world dish came to America with immigrants who knew how to make filling meals from simple ingredients. Your grandmother would carefully peel leaves from a cabbage head, blanching them in boiling water until pliable. The filling was usually ground meat mixed with rice and seasonings, though during tough times it might be mostly rice with just a hint of meat for flavor. She'd roll the filling in the cabbage leaves, tucking in the sides like little packages. Arranged in a pot and covered with tomato sauce or sauerkraut juice, they'd simmer for hours. The cabbage became tender and sweet. The filling absorbed all those flavors. One head of cabbage could make enough rolls to feed a large family, with leftovers that reheated beautifully. Fried Spam. Spam hit American shelves in 1937 and quickly became a household staple. At 25 cents per can, it was shelf-stable meat that required no refrigeration. Your grandmother would slice it thick and fry it until crispy on the outside. Served with eggs for breakfast or with rice for dinner, Spam filled the gap when fresh meat was too expensive or unavailable. During World War II, it became so associated with military rations that soldiers had dozens of nicknames for it, not all flattering. But on the home front, families were grateful for affordable protein. Hawaiian families embraced Spam so thoroughly it became part of their cuisine. Fried Spam sandwiches, Spam and eggs, Spam fried rice. This canned meat saved countless families from hunger during tough times. Let that sink in. What we joke about today was survival food for millions. ramen noodles. Before ramen became dorm room food, it was imported as an exotic convenience food in the 1950s. But American families had been making similar cheap noodle soups for generations. Your grandmother might cook plain noodles in seasoned broth made from bouillon cubes or leftover bones. A beaten egg stirred in at the end added protein and richness. Sliced green onions from the windowsill garden, maybe some frozen peas or corn. The key was the hot broth. It made simple noodles feel like a complete meal. Some families added leftover meat. Others cracked an egg right into the boiling soup to poach. This adaptation of Asian cuisine became an American staple because it was fast, cheap, and endlessly adaptable to whatever ingredients were on hand. Pasta with marinara sauce. Spaghetti became American comfort food thanks to Italian immigrants who made their treasured recipes work with available ingredients. Your grandmother's marinara used canned tomatoes when fresh were out of season. At 10 cents a can, they were economical and reliable. She'd saute garlic in olive oil, add those tomatoes, and let it all simmer with basil from the windowsill and oregano. The pasta itself was cheap. A pound cost about 15 cents and could feed 6 people. Some families added meatballs when they could afford ground beef. Others just enjoyed the simple pleasure of pasta and sauce. Leftover sauce got spread on bread for pizza or mixed with vegetables for soup. Italian families taught their American neighbors that good food didn't require expensive ingredients, just time, care, and a little creativity. Shakshuka. Middle Eastern immigrants brought this economical dish to America, where it found new fans during tough times. Eggs poached in spiced tomato sauce cost almost nothing to make, but delivered restaurant-worthy flavors. Your grandmother would saute onions and peppers in a skillet, add canned tomatoes and whatever spices she had, paprika, cumin, maybe some hot pepper. Once the sauce was bubbling, she'd crack eggs directly into it, covering the pan until the whites set, but yolks stayed runny. Served with crusty bread to soak up that flavorful sauce, this one-pan meal felt special despite its humble ingredients. Each person got 2 eggs swimming in that rich, spicy sauce, protein and vegetables in perfect harmony. Families started making it for breakfast, lunch, or dinner whenever eggs were the only protein they could afford. Homemade pizza. Before pizza chains dotted every corner, your grandmother was making her own version at home. The dough was simple: flour, yeast, water, a little oil. She'd let it rise while doing other chores, then stretch it onto a greased pan. The sauce might be leftover marinara or just canned tomatoes seasoned with garlic and herbs. Cheese was whatever she had, mozzarella if lucky, cheddar, or even American cheese if that's what was available. Toppings were usually garden vegetables or leftover meat. The magic happened in a hot oven where simple ingredients transformed into something special. Friday night pizza became a tradition in many households because it was cheap, fun, and everyone could help make it. Kids would remember those nights forever, not because the pizza was perfect, but because the family made it together. Think about that. Some of our most cherished food memories come from the simplest meals. Thanks for joining us on this trip down memory lane. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like and share it with a friend. And don't forget to subscribe.